linked lists. Now, you've been using array lists so far, and linked lists can do a lot of the same stuff. So in an array list, we hold some data, and then if we want to add some data, we just do .add, and then it'll put the data at the end, and then we can, also add some more data and continue to do this, and at times we want to remove some data from it too. And then whenever you need to get it, you say get me whatever's at position 0 or position 1, and then that's what you're going to get. Linked lists work exactly the same way, except that internally they are completely different. So from the outside, they look the same. But let's look at the inside. What exactly would a linked list look like? Well, there's going to be a head, and this will be represented by an instance variable. And the instance variable is going to be called head, and it's going to be of type node. So at the head, we're going to hold the front, I guess you could call it, the leftmost side, the beginning of the linked list. So this would be at index 0. And whenever we want to add something, let's say that we wanted to use the add first method, then we would say, hey, I want to add some data. And here we have a string, and then this string will go into the data part of the node. And then we will also say, I want to connect this node to the next available node, but right now there is no next available node, so we're going to start at null. Now we put the node at the head of the linked list, and now what we have is that at position 0, if we were to do .get 0, then we would get back the data inside of this node. We wouldn't get back the whole node. Node is some internal concept for the linked list. We would just get back what we stored. So we use this node to be able to store something. If we were to do add first one more time, then we have another string that we're storing. We would create a different node, and then that node would store some data, which would be this string, and then for its next instance variable, we would point it to whatever is at the head right now of the linked list. So what's that going to do? Well, once we put this node, because we're adding it first, so we're adding it to the beginning of the linked list, we're going to put it at index 0. What this is going to do is it's going to link these two nodes, and then it's going to make our linked list grow. We're going to put the new node that we just created at head. We're going to say the next one was the old head, and then the old head's next is nothing, so it's null. So we know that whenever we find next is null, then that's the end of our linked list. That is the last node. And we can continue to do this. We can do add first one more time. We can create a new node. We can put the data inside of this node, and we can say next is going to be head. We're going to connect it, and then it's going to go into head. And what it's going to do is going to be all these nodes that are linked together. By creating these links, we can continue to add on to the linked list indefinitely without having to worry about whether it's going to fill up or not. Now, we don't just add to the front, and generally we don't add to the front. Generally, we add to the end of a list. An array list, when you do .add, that's what happens. So same thing with a linked list. If we do .add, we put some string inside of a node, and then we put that node over in the head if it's the first one. Now let's say we do .add one more time. We have a new node, we have new data. We want to put this at the end of the list. So we're going to go over here. What we're going to say is now with the new node, instead of saying that it's connected to head like we did before, we want to connect it to null. Or we want to say that next is null. And then we want to connect the heads next to the new node. We'll try one more. So we'll do add RIP. We're going to put that inside of some data, And then we are going to put this at the end of the linked list. And instead of the second nodes being null, we're going to say that next is now connected to this node. And then we are all done. So by doing this, again, depending on where we put these nodes and how we link them, we end up with a list that is sorted in a particular way, whether you add things to the beginning or add things to the end. But again, from the outside, using .add just kind of adds things, and using .get will just get you whatever is at that position.